Ever since ON1 Photo RAW was released, there's been a lot of questions about what is the difference between the LUT filter and the match color filter. Today, we're going to unpack both of those tools, and I'm going to explain the differences and why you would probably choose one over the other. Let's go. So here we are inside of ON1 Photo RAW, and you can see I have a photo here. I haven't done anything to this image. All I've done was import it, and you can see over here on the develop module, I have nothing going on with the tone and color here. It's just straight out of camera raw file. That's all that's happening here. So now that we know that this photo has nothing on it, let's take a look at what each filter does to the image. So we're going to start with the LUT filter. And before we go there, let's just talk about what the LUT filter is. It's essentially just a tool that allows you to map colors from a .cube file. And that's what's important about LUTs. They use a specific file type in order to map colors and contrast over an image. And this is very popular in film and videos and things of that sort. And it's found its way into the photography space. So this is what we've traditionally had available to us, and it's relatively limited, if I'm going to be honest. All right, so we go ahead and activate the LUT filter, and you can see right away the impact that it has on the image. If I do a before and after, you can see that I'm using the preset blues here. And by the way, I'm going to use presets throughout this entire video demonstration. With the exception of a few things, but I'll make it clear when I'm not using a preset. So that way you test this out with your own images. But if I come down here with the LUT filter, it gives me categories, and inside of each of these categories, I get different options. So let's say I wanted to go with a color grading option, and then I can just kind of cycle through these, and you can see how it's changing the color and some of the tonality across the image as well. Like this one's making it a little bit darker. This one gets a little bit more contrasty. You can see what the LUT is doing here, and it can do that because of that cube file. And when I say cube, I mean C-U-B-E. What you can also do with some of these LUTs, or with all of the LUTs, I should say, is you can increase or decrease the contrast in the image. Like this is a brighter LUT, so when I increase the contrast, it's going to make the image a little bit brighter in the brightest areas, and then the darker areas get a little bit darker. But obviously, if I change this to a different LUT, like let's say focus, you can see that I get a little bit more control over that contrast in the image. And then, of course, I have saturation. But that's really where the LUT filter ends. And this is great. It was really helpful for what we have available to us, or what we had available to us. But with Photo RAW 2025, we get the match color filter. So let's go ahead and take a look at what that can do. We'll go ahead and turn this on. And by default, it doesn't have anything loaded into it. It's just a blank canvas, and you get to choose where you want to start. So like I mentioned, I'm only going to be using presets in today's video. So let's go ahead and click on Medusa, and you can see right away, it does essentially the same thing that the LUT filter was doing. It's just adding color to the image. Hopefully you can see instantly that this interface is a little bit different than the LUT filter. And that's because I have color, luminosity, contrast, and saturation. So this filter actually adds 2 more sliders to the mix. And what color does is it just allows me to increase or decrease the color. And think of these more like blend sliders. So the underlying colors on the image, so if I turn this off, this is what is on the image, right? The colors that are in the image. If I turn this on, you can see I don't fully get rid of the pink here. And if I pull this all the way to the left, you can see that the pink, it comes back. Now, if I pull this all the way to the right, you can see the pink, it kind of gets faded because it's adding yellow into it. Inside of ON1 and the match color filter, think of these as more like blenders between this photo's colors and the original colors that existed in the image. And this is where a lot of creativity can happen. All right. Now I'm going to go ahead and reset this. And you can also do luminosity, which is going to be how much of the luminosity do you want to adapt into the image. The reference file that ON1 is using in Match Color is a little bit darker than the original file. So when I pull the luminosity all the way up, you can see it darkens my image because it's using 100% of the luminosity values inside of the reference image. And if I pull this all the way down, you can see it's not using any of those luminosity references. So if I only want the color from this image, but not the brightness or the luminosity, then I can pull up on just the color. And that is one of the differences. That's the first difference between the LUT filter and the Match Color filter, which is I can apply just the color from an image or a reference file, but not the luminosity values. Whereas with the LUT filter, all I can do is really control the contrast, and I don't really get any separation between the luminosity and the color. But with the Match Color filter, I get that flexibility. Now, let me go ahead and reset this because I want to kind of talk through what else is happening. And you'll notice I didn't talk about the contrast or saturation. Those work the exact same way as the LUT filter, so that's kind of the similarities and differences between them. But let's dive a little bit deeper into the Match Color filter because I think that there's some misunderstandings of what's happening here. So the first thing is you have to have a reference image. So if I go back to our preset here and I click on Medusa, you'll see that a reference image pops up. Now, the reference image can be any image file format that is read by ON1. So that's JPEG, PNG, TIFF, and even RAW files. Now, I wouldn't recommend using a RAW file because there's usually not any color data that you really want, but I'll show you another technique here in a bit. Where this comes in handy is if you see a photo that you like the colors of and you want to overlay them with your image, then all you have to do is download that image, upload it into the Match Color filter, and then play around with these sliders until you get something that you enjoy. Here's what I will caution you with. You have to be careful with choosing the right image to make sure that it matches with your image or at least your creative vision. I'm not here to tell you what is right and what is wrong. I'm just here to let you know that you probably want to select an image that's going to complement the photo you're working on. Now, if I hit this little drop down where it says reference, I get the option to load a file. And if I hit load file, you'll see my menu pops up and I can go through and go look at any image across the across my hard drives. Nothing new there or different. Like you can just go find the photos. That's pretty straightforward. All right. But what's really cool here is it stores reference files. So these are previous images that I opened. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this first one. And you can see it's a green forest image, and you've probably seen this photo before, but look at what it's doing to the image. It's not really doing a good job. So if I pull down on the color, you can see I'm getting rid of all that green overcast, and maybe I want the luminosity from this particular image. And you see, this is where the beauty of using the Match Color tool comes in. All right. And then, of course, if I wanted to saturate a little bit more or less, I can use just the saturation values separate from the color values of the image. And that's what's so different between the Match Color and the LUT filter when you start getting creative, because this reference image has saturation values baked into it, and ON1 is reading those saturation values and it's saying, okay, you want the saturation values that are in this photo to kind of transpose over this image. And if that's a little confusing for you, don't worry about it. Just play with the tool, see what happens. And if you don't like it, guess what? You can just double click on it and reset it and it goes away. It's that simple. And then the same thing holds true with the contrast slider. You can just go ahead and mess around with it. And that's what I love about using programs like ON1, where you can just kind of move around the sliders and see if you like something. So let's say I really like that, and now that one is done. But Match Color has another trick up its sleeve. And this is one of those things that if you're an advanced user of ON1, then you'll really get a lot of enjoyment out of this. And if not, then maybe you will not have so much fun with it. And that's okay. Notice up here, I have a layer with, it's blue. I'll turn it on so you can see. It's blue. It's not really good. I did this intentionally so that way we can see it. But notice that it says Match Color Demo. I gave it a name. When I hit the reference menu here, underneath the layers option, you can see I have an option that says Match Color Demo. That's the exact same layer that's up here. So I can click this, and now ON1 is referencing a layer inside of my project file. Now again, this is one of those things for advanced users. If you are working in layers and you realize that there's something that you like the colors because you built them, and maybe you're using a third-party application, it comes back into ON1 as a layer, and you like the color that you got off of that, and then you want to kind of overlay that into your image and really control it, well, this is a way that you can do that. You can just click on Save Reference Image or Reference Images, and then you can just click on the layer that is up there with the color. And I think that that's really cool and unique. And, you know, of course, I can get rid of the color itself and the luminosity, and we're back to square one, which is nothing applied. So if I turn off the preview and turn it back on, you can see that the match color is really just a blending filter to the reference image that's overlaid on your main photo that you're working on. So here's the question that a lot of people ask me after I explain this. Well, Chris, which filter should I be using on my images? Now, the first way that I answer that is it's completely up to you. It's your photo. It's subjective. But if you want more flexibility, the match color filter is absolutely going to give you the most flexibility in making your images work the way that you want and get the color, the luminosity, contrast, and saturation. Now, the difference or the trade-off there is you actually have to work a little bit harder, whereas LUTs are a little bit more simple to use because it's really only two sliders. So if you want something that's easy to use, then go for a LUT. If you want to get a little bit more involved with the colors and how that's actually impacting your image, then I recommend the match filter. And if you're trying to figure out between the two, I would recommend defaulting to the match filter every single time, as long as you have a reference image that you want to put over your photo. Now, if there's a LUT that you enjoy the color and you don't have a reference file to point ON1 to, then you obviously want to go with the LUT. I use both in my workflow, but I'm leaning towards match color a lot more frequently in the ON1 Photo RAW 2025 version. Now, obviously, if you don't have the 2025 version, then you're not going to be able to use the match color filter. And if you're considering picking up the 2025 version, well, consider using my coupon code FreeWillPhotos20. It'll save you some money at checkout. I make a small commission, but that's at no extra cost to you or extra charge to you. And it helps me continue to grow and sustain the video production on this channel. I greatly appreciate everyone who uses that, but if not, that's okay. If you found value in the content, go ahead and smash the like button and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Now, if you want me to answer your questions specifically about ON1 or help you develop a workflow inside of ON1 Photo RAW, consider signing up for a training call down in the description box below. You'll get an hour with me and I'll just walk you through how to use ON1, and it's going to be tailored to your workflow. I'm not going to try and sell you on my own personal workflow. I'm just going to help you develop your own workflow inside of ON1 so you can use this program when there's no one there to help you. You can just start executing your vision inside of the program. And I really enjoy helping people in that way. So if that's something you're interested in, check the description box below and I'll be happy to have a coaching call with you. So with all that out of the way, until next time, I want you guys to stay inspired and keep creating. Peace.